Welcome to Reputation Room. I'm Andy Hallmark. Every communications leader I know is hiring into a profession that looks very different than it did even 5 years ago. AI can write, social media has changed how organizations communicate. The number of channels keep growing, and yet the need for trust and judgment and clear communication may be more important than ever. So, when communications leaders evaluate talent today, what are they actually looking for? My guest to discuss this topic is Lisa Tomlin, Director of Communications for North America at Framatome. Over nearly 3 decades, Lisa has built brands, led corporate communications, managed organizational change, advised executives, and developed communications teams across highly technical industries where reputation and trust matter every day. She has also hired many comms professionals along the way. So I'm excited to talk to her. Lisa, welcome to the Reputation Room.
Thank you, Andy. I'm so glad to be here.
So you've interviewed and hired communications professionals at, multiple stages across your career. And when you're evaluating a candidate today, what's the first thing that makes you think this person has potential?
Well, the first thing I'm not looking for anymore is writing ability. And it
Oh.
isn't software skills. It isn't even experience. It's curiosity.
Hmm.
I think the best communications professionals are naturally curious about people, about business, about technology, about operations and strategy. They ask one more question than everyone else. And I can teach someone how to write a better headline. I can teach them how to use a platform. What I can't teach is genuine curiosity about how things work and why people behave the way they do.
Is this almost heresy in a way? I have to say, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but when we used to hire people, we would be like, we want people who can write. We literally would say those words, and then we would give you a writing test during the interview. Does it feel a little bit like you're like, I can't believe I'm saying this?
Yes, it really does. It really does. When I meet a candidate who's clearly spent time understanding a business, not just that someone that's developed writing skills, I pay
Right.
attention to that person. Because communication isn't really about just communication. It's really about understanding.
I mean, that is kind of a sea change. Do you find that when you're talking to those candidates, are they still saying things like, well, I'm a really good writer?
Yes, they are.
And so what do you say when they say that? You're like, "Okay, well, cool, but what else?"
Yes, exactly. That's what I say. And I try to ask them some probing questions to see if they will in turn to start asking me questions about the business, about how things work, about even about my experience.
I don't actually remember back in the Stone Ages there even being a degree for communications. I don't recall this. And now you get people who say, "I wanna go into communications. I have this communications degree. They've taught me how to use, melt water, and they've taught me how to talk to the media, and they've taught me how to come up with communications plans, etcetera." But I mean, there's such a difference, I think, early in your career coming in and having done that theoretically, and then coming into a real world experience to do it. How do you how do you probe to find out if they're really ready to do what you need them to do at Framatome, for instance?
Well, I think the environment has changed so much over the last couple of decades.
Mm,
Um, Communications teams in the past were often creators of information, but today, information is everywhere. The value has shifted from creating information to helping people navigate it. So I spend less time asking, can this person create content? Can this person write? And more time asking, can this person help me? Can this person help other leaders make better decisions?
so let's go back a step in the process, and let's say that you have that ubiquitous stack of resumes, obviously digitally, but let's say you have that stack of resumes sitting in front of you, and before you ever get to interview someone, what do you wanna see on that resume that says, "Okay, this could be worth my time"?
I want to see something on the resume that shows me work that they've done or an experience that they've had that has made a quantifiable difference somewhere. Not just how many pieces of content they created or even an interesting concept or headline that they came up with. I want to know if they can demonstrate to me on that resume how they were able to move the needle. Did they increase engagement?
Mm.
Were they able to make an impact on corporate culture? Things like that.
But do you ever find, especially as people are beginning out, they're like, I worked on this project. Like and it becomes very unclear what role they actually played on those projects.
Yes, yes, many
Yeah.
times.
I mean, how do you dig into that and say, okay, I hear you, you worked on this. And maybe they say, I worked on this and it moved the needle, kind of to what you said a moment ago,
Mhm.
but you're not sure if they actually moved the needle. How do you find out what the truth is there?
I ask them what role they played. Who were the players in the room? Who did they engage with when they were working on the project? And more specifically, what was their role? Not just
You
were they around it, but did they have an active participating role in the project?
So I don't think we can have a conversation about hiring without talking about AI. And many young professionals entering the workforce have never known a world without these tools. So how does that change the way you evaluate talent?
Well, I am a big proponent of AI and a fan of it. I feel like I've been a pretty early adopter. It's certainly in my organization and in my personal life as well. So, so I'm glad that they use the tool. I'm glad that they have access to the tool. I don't want them to spend much time trying to tell me that they don't use the tool or show me that they can write on their own without using it. I'm a proponent of them using it to help them. I'm excited about AI. I'm excited about this younger generation of the workforce that's has grown up with it, has used it to be more efficient, to be faster. Um, but I like it when I can tell if they are using their skills that are deeply human with the
Mm.
technology to generate something that we haven't seen before.
I have concerns that it's easy for Lisa Tomlin, 3-decade communications leader, to use AI and know what is human and what is not, and what is not a hallucination and what works. I think it's tougher if you're in your first year out of college and Lisa Tomlin says, go make something with AI. Go figure it out. Don't you?
Yes, I agree. You're right. And I see that. With some folks that I have hired that are right out of school and they're very adept at all the tools and the AI platforms that we have. But what they haven't had necessarily is exposure to different business leaders or even different professionals within an organization. So I think for young professionals trying to balance using the new technology and tools that are out there with exposure to other professionals and different generations of professionals, right? That's really going to round them out, and I think help build their human experiences to couple with that technology that we have now.
Do you think that this is also a challenge considering when I mean, I have a child in college. So do you. You know, when you think about the way that they talk about AI in college, use AI in college, get reprimanded. That's where we are.
Right.
And yet, there's a whole bunch of us outside of the college setting who are saying, "Show me how you can use AI." I mean, how do you get over this kind of hump here, where everyone's been told AI is the devil in college, and then they get out of college, and all the corporations they want to work for are like, "You better be using AI as well." How do you get over that?
Gosh, as a young professional, I would say listen and be ready to adapt, right? I think everything that they're learning in school is valuable, and there is a reason that those educators are trying to teach them not to rely on it as a crutch. But the speed of business these days,
Right.
especially with the of impacts of AI, um, young professionals are going to have to be able to adapt very quickly to maybe how they've done it in school and how it's going to be done in the professional world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I almost would like people to come to me and say, "Okay, I would like to work for you, and here's how I would use AI. Like here's the way I would do it. That's different than maybe the way you thought about it before. Not just dump some stuff in." Because I think for me, I want to see that they're thinking creatively, even when it comes to prompting AI.
Right. Exactly. I just had a
Um,
young professional yesterday send me an AI agent they had created. Um,
yeah.
to help us in our communications, and I was so impressed because it really hit the mark, and they've not been with us that long, so it's exciting and inspiring to me to see these, young professionals adapting, as we're adapting along with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said, that story you just shared is on the it's on the nose because we want people who are thinking, all right, I've got the tool the same way as we had other tools back in the day, the same way as we would use Cision or whatever it is, right? I want them to say, here's the tool. Here's what I want to use the tool for that is specific to us and it will help us move forward, right?
Right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
right, Andy.
When you're in the interview, and I'm just curious, are you doing most of your interviews in person these days? You doing them online, mixture of both? How does it go?
It is a mixture of both. We are using, some of the newer tools like, higher view. So the candidate will do a video interview,
Mhm.
in a room by themselves, and they'll send that in, and we'll get to see them answer some questions. Before then, the next step is probably a virtual interview that's live. But I do like to bring them in person or fly to wherever site I'm hiring for. I do like to still meet the candidate in person before I make the final decision.
For those who are stuck in the virtual world doing it virtually, you have any tips? It's my first job. I'm trying to get out of college. I'm sitting in front of this person talking virtually. Any tips for me?
Be authentic. Be yourself. I'm always intrigued when someone can make me laugh in one of their higher view videos. It's not a requirement for sure, but sometimes even the outtakes or a slip up kind of shows what personality they have. So I just say, don't be afraid to make a mistake and be your authentic self.
What surprises you in the younger generation that's applying for jobs today? Something that you're like, that's interesting. I see that trend.
Okay, how adaptable they are and how many different things they've done before they've even graduated college. So many young people, are already entrepreneurs and have been running some little side business of their own, whether it's digital marketing or some other interesting thing they've done. And I just find that different from how it was in the past. Usually you were just focused on school or maybe a specialized internship, but this generation is doing a lot more things at much younger ages, I think, than what we did.
Let's say that you're someone who just got their first communications job, and what would you tell them to focus on during their first few years of work? Like, what experiences should they seek? What mistakes should they make sure they avoid? Those types of things.
For me, I think the best advice I could give there is don't specialize too early. Try to get as
Hmm.
much experience. Let's say just in the communications profession, right? Some people may say, "Oh, I want to do social media. I want to do digital marketing." Yes, do that. Do all of those things. Do many of those things. Work in corporate communications. Work with media relations. Do as much as you can, and I would say breadth versus depth in those few early years is much more important.
Do you think specialization is a problem right now? I mean, I think whether you're a doctor or you're in communications, I feel like that's what we really lean toward is this idea of this is my niche and I'm really good at my niche.
Yeah, well, I think specialization is for the younger crowd in communications anyway. Can't speak to the medical profession,
Yeah,
but
right.
in communications, I think it kind of goes back to what I just said about them having an entrepreneurial spirit or working a side gig. Maybe they've learned digital marketing, right? Because they were able to make a little extra money through college, right? So I think there's a natural tendency to want to specialize because that's maybe the only experience you have, but once you get into a corporate job or working for a nonprofit, you're going to be exposed to professionals that have done more than you, and you may,
Right.
be exposed to different opportunities within your first role there. So I say go for it. And even if you land your first job, because that's the most important thing is right,
Yeah.
getting the job. If you land a job and it's specialized, don't stay in that comfort zone. Ask for other opportunities. Make friends with people that are doing other things that are adjacent to what you do. Volunteer for projects because that's how you build out that breadth of experience early on in your career.
100%. Tell me about, I know you've had a chance to hire quite a few people recently as you've just been building your team. Tell me about someone you've hired recently who exceeded your expectations. What made them different?
The ones that stand out are the ones that don't wait to be told what to do.
Oh,
They
mhm.
anticipate what's needed. They can sense when the workload is heavy on the team. They're constantly looking for ways to help, to add value, to make things better. Um, just this week, I was getting ready to go into a meeting, and one of my employees came in with a packet, like a briefing packet they had put together for me on it. And I couldn't thank them enough. I didn't ask them to do it. They knew I had the meeting coming up. And that is what makes an employee incredibly valuable. I was able to use the document that was created in the meeting I had 5 minutes later, and it was so helpful. And I was sure to thank them for it in the moment and then even after. But it really does make a difference.
If you were making a hire tomorrow and you could only choose two or three qualities that you wanted in someone, I know the first one's going to be curiosity, but after that, what would they be?
Curiosity, that we've already talked about, of course.
Right.
Second most important, I think, is judgment for sure. Um, and then ownership. So curiosity
Uh-huh.
helps you learn. You broaden your experiences and your knowledge with curiosity. Judgment helps you decide. And ownership helps you execute. It's almost like what I was talking about with that example I gave earlier, right? Someone taking ownership, taking initiative to do something, not only helped them execute, but it helped me execute as well.
You know, you could use those 3 things as a template for your interviews as well, couldn't you?
Yes.
When you get an interview, you could just say, "You know, I was working on this project and I was really wondering, why are we doing it this way? And so I thought about this, and this is what we tried to do."
Mhm.
And you could just show curiosity, judgment, and ownership so easily in the examples that you give. I think that would be so powerful for someone hiring.
Yes. And you've given me an idea today, Andy. We might work that into our interview and hiring.
I'm I mean, why not? I mean, I remember way back in the day when I hired for my first utility job, and the requirement was, and I thought, "Oh, this is horrible. This is so pedantic." But the requirement was for every question you were asked, you had to share an example with that question, and they gave you your questions ahead of time, maybe 25 questions, I think it was.
Ooh, wow.
And so when you walked into the room, you interviewed and you sat in front of a bunch of engineers, of course, and you answered the questions and then you shared an example of how you had done what your answer was. And honestly, I think it was very powerful. When I look back at it, I think it was a really great process.
Mhm.
I think it leads to my final question for you today, which is this. We have to prognosticate because I think it's important to think about it. But 10 years from now, we talked about 5 years ago, how different it is now. But 10 years from now, what do you think communication leaders will still be looking for in their next hire?
Gosh, I think, the tools are going to change. The platforms are certainly going to change. The technology will change. But I think communications leaders will still be looking for people that can build trust.
Mhm.
Every major challenge organizations face, from transformations to crisis management to employee engagement, they ultimately come down to trust. I think 10 years from now, the most valuable communicator in the room won't be the best content creator.
Mhm.
It will be the person that leaders trust when the stakes are highest. And I think that is a timeless skill.
That's a great thing to leave us on. Lisa, thanks for joining us in the reputation room today.
Thank you for having me, Andy.